Okay, we're going to look at Chelsea versus Tottenham to begin with. It's a 12:45 kick-off on Saturday lunchtime this weekend in the Premier League. We'll talk about Chelsea to begin with. Now, during the week they were leading at Manchester City, all guns blazing after a good spell under Roberto Di Matteo, but they threw away that lead. City fought back and Chelsea lost the game 2-1. That's Di Matteo's first loss since taking over as Andre Villas-Boas' manager. Missed a chance really, because Spurs also dropped points during the week, so they could have really pushed on for that top four position, but it wasn't to be. But they'll go again, and they're playing some decent football at the moment and looking more like the old Chelsea, and I hope that's the case against Spurs this weekend in what is a massive game in terms of chasing for the top four. As for Tottenham, they're struggling at the moment. 4 games about to win in the Premier League, and Harry Redknapp has actually said that he's admitted that they've lost their way a little bit, and you can see why. So maybe since the England link and how good they were at the start of the season, it's just not continued to this stage. They really want to get back on track, because if they fade away in the same fashion they have been doing the last couple of weeks, then they're going to be looking at a top 6 finish rather than a top 4. And also they've been overtaken by Arsenal, which will really disappoint Spurs fans, so they'll want to get back on track this weekend. Prediction wise, I actually think Spurs will get back on track. I'm going to go for Chelsea 1, Spurs 2. I've just got a feeling it's going to be a big weekend for Spurs and they can get their season sort of back on course, and for Chelsea and have a narrow defeat against a team sort of fighting for that top 4 position. Okay, we look at Arsenal versus Aston Villa. It's a 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon in the Premier League, and we'll talk about the Gunners briefly to begin with. Excellent win at Everton during the week, 1-0. Thomas Vermaelen goal separated the two teams there, and it's the 6th Premier League win on the spin for Arsene Wenger's men, and they're back up to 3rd in the league above Tottenham. They'll be really happy with their form. Obviously just missed out in the Champions League, but Premier League wise they're probably in the best one they've been in all season. They'll want that to continue this weekend and beyond, so they can secure that 3rd position now they're there. As for Villa, their last Premier League game was a 1-0 victory over Fulham, which is a much needed win. It was their first win at Villa Park for quite some time, so they'll be pleased with that. They're 10 points above the bottom 3 going into this weekend, so no immediate danger of being sort of dragged into a relegation battle, but as QPR showed with their win over Liverpool, sort of the teams at the bottom of the table really are fighting for their lives, and no one's dead and buried yet, so Villa need to be careful, need to keep picking up points, and tough test against Arsenal this weekend, but they'll look to go into it and be competitive. Prediction wise, I actually think it's going to be the same result as it was in the FA Cup earlier this season. In that occasion Villa were 2-0 up and lost 3-2. Don't think it'll be quite as much of a dramatic game this time, but I do think there'll be goals, so I'm going for Arsenal 3, Aston Villa 2. Okay, next up we're going to look at Bolton at home to Blackburn. It's a 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon in the Premier League. We'll talk about Bolton to begin with. Now, obviously football hasn't been the priority for them this week, and it's fantastic to see that Fabrice Muamba is on the mend, and hopefully that will continue in the next few days. But football-wise, they're in the bottom 3, so this is a big game for them against a team that are only 5 points above them. They want to drag Blackburn, who have kind of pushed away a bit. They want to drag them back in right into the danger, and Bolton will keep fighting until the very end of the season, because that's what Owen Coyle will have his team doing. This is a big weekend for them though in the course of the season. As for Blackburn, excellent turnaround really over the course of the last few months. They lost at home to Bolton just before Christmas. They were rock bottom at that point. The fans were turning against the board, they were turning against Steve Keane, but he's still there, the manager. The board is still there, and at the moment they're looking good to stay up. They've beaten Wolves and Sunderland in their last 2 games. They're now 5 points above the relegation zone, so still a long way to go, but positive signs for Blackburn. And this is a big weekend for them, because if they can win this one, then they really are pushing away from that bottom 3. Prediction wise though, I think it's the home side that are going to get the 3 points. I think after the difficult week or so they've had, I think it's sort of written maybe that they will get the 3 points in this one. They'll have to work hard for it though, so I'm going to go for Bolton 1, Blackburn 0. Okay, we're going to look at Liverpool at home to Wigan. It's another 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon in the Premier League. We're going to talk about Liverpool to begin with. Now, really disappointing for them during the week. They threw away a 2-0 lead at Queen's Park Rangers. They were coasting, and in the last 15 minutes conceded 3 goals to lose the game, and that's kind of been the way it's been going for Liverpool this season. Really disappointing in the league. They're actually closer to the bottom of the table than they are the top of the table, and that's quite a telling statistic for a team as big as Liverpool, that ambitions as big as they've got. They've also lost 4 of the last 5, so even though they've been successful in the Carling Cup and progressed in the FA Cup, the Premier League form has been very poor of late, and that is a worry for Kenny Dalglish and his team. And top 4 is now 12 points away, so you can wonder if they can forget about the top 4 and maybe concentrate on the top 6 finish now. As for Wigan, they've drawn their last couple of games, which is points on the board, even though it's slightly frustrating given their desperate need for points, because they are in a relegation battle and they probably will be for the rest of the season. There's been fighting talk from their manager Roberto Martinez though. He's come out and said that they will stay up, so he's positive. He thinks his team can get enough points over the remaining games to survive in the Premier League, and they are still in touch. They do have as good a chance as anyone sort of in the bottom 4, 5 or 6 that are fighting to stay up. They have got Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United and Arsenal to come in the next sort of 4 or 5 games though, so where the points are going to come from they're not quite sure, but maybe 1 or 2 shock results and Wigan can be sort of really in a good position to survive this season. I don't think they'll get the win this weekend though, so prediction wise I think it'll be a relatively ugly game. I think Liverpool have to work really hard at times. Wigan might even take the lead in this one, but I think in the end I think it's going to be Liverpool 2, Wigan 1. Okay, we look at Norwich versus Wolves, 3 p.m. this weekend on Saturday in the Premier League. Talk about Norwich to begin with now. Paul Lambert's men are probably on the worst run of form they've been on all season really. Sort of haven't won since the 11th of February, which was a fantastic win at Swansea, but in fairness to them, they were overdue a bad spell. It hasn't really happened this year. They've been fantastic, sort of fought. But they will want to be careful because the teams at the bottom are really fighting for their lives. So Norwich could do with a win. At home to Wolves this weekend, this will be where they really could target the maybe one more win they need to really be comfortable going into the next few games. There was signs of their better form against Newcastle most recently, even though they lost the game 1-0. This really is a massive game for Norwich this season. Sort of lose this one, maybe there'll be a couple of murmurings that kind of they could be dragged into something a bit messy down towards the bottom. As for Wolves, they're right at the bottom. So they want to drag Norwich into it. They're rock bottom. They've conceded 12 goals in their last 3 games, all defeats. They've scored no goals in that sequence. Bolton at home after this, so arguably a make or break couple of games for Terry Connor and his men, and sort of the atmosphere is still not great at Wolves, and you do wonder whether they are doomed. So they'll have to really turn it around if they're going to stay in the Premier League this season. Prediction wise for this one, I'm actually going to go for a narrow home win. I think Norwich will get the 3 points that they're after to maybe sort of, as I say, sort of be relatively comfortable going into the remaining few games. It might not be very easy though. I think Wolves will really fight for it, but I just don't think they've got enough going forward at the moment. Wolves, they're low on confidence, so I think Norwich in the end will nick the game 1-0. Okay, we look at Sunderland at home to Queen's Park Rangers, 3 p.m. kick-off on Saturday afternoon in the Premier League. Talk about Sunderland to begin with. Most recently, Martin O'Neill admitted that they didn't deserve to get anything with their loss at Blackburn, and sort of they came away with a 2-0 defeat, quite one of the poorer performances under Martin O'Neill since he took over, because obviously they've been very good generally since he took over from Steve Bruce. They're now 4 points above 15th, which if they want a top 10 finish they need to make sure they don't fade, because you can very easily be dragged sort of into sort of 14th, 15th position, which is obviously sort of not as reflective on sort of the good form Sunderland have had under Martin O'Neill. They want 3 points here going into their FA Cup replay during the week as well, just to really give them a boost before that replay against Everton. As for Queen's Park Rangers, what a win in midweek. They beat Liverpool 3-2. If people didn't write them off before the game because of the run they've been on, they certainly wrote them off when Liverpool were 2-0 up with around 15 minutes to go. They fought back fantastically well to win the game 3-2. Jamie Mackie getting a goal in the last minute for a crucial 3 points more than anything else, but also you do wonder whether that could be a turning point for QPR. They'll hope to continue that theory this weekend at the Stadium of Light. And I think they will get a solid point actually. I think Sunderland, maybe we've got one eye on the FA Cup replay. They may rest a player or two considering they're relatively safe in the Premier League, whereas QPR will take that victory against Liverpool and go into this game sort of in the best confidence they've gone into a game for quite some time, you might think. So I'm actually going to go for prediction wise, I'm going to go for Sunderland 1, Queen's Park Rangers 1. Okay, we look at Swansea versus Everton. This is another 3 p.m. kick-off on a busy day in the Premier League on Saturday. Swansea loving life at the moment. They've won 3 games in a row, the most recent of which was a fantastic 3-0 win at Fulham, a Fulham side who have been sort of relatively decent over the last few weeks and certainly a strong side at home. So that was a fantastic win for Brendan Rodgers and his team, and arguably they're up to 8th, they're 39th and got 39 points, and arguably there's probably not a team that would join their football more than Swansea at the moment. They could be relaxed in terms of sort of pushing for surviving in the Premier League. They're relaxed, they're not going to be pushing any further than 8th really. so they can be really content with where they are, and they hope to enjoy sort of the remaining games of this season, because they really do deserve it after being fantastic this year. As for Everton, narrow defeat at home to Arsenal during the week, and that's a couple of defeats on the spin after the Merseyside derby defeat to Liverpool. They've also got the FA Cup replay against Sunderland after this during the week, so whether they'll take one eye off this one, maybe rest a couple of players, that could determine the result in this game. They do need to get back on track in the league, because they really do want a top 10 finish, you would say. At the moment they are 10th, but it's very tight in the middle there, so they need to make sure they don't fade over the next couple of games. Prediction wise, I've actually got a feeling for Everton in this one. I don't know why. I think it's maybe because Swansea have won 3 games in a row. Can they really win 4 in a row? I'm not quite sure, even though they have been fantastic, so I don't completely rule it out. I'm actually going to go for an Everton win. I think they're due after a couple of defeats, so I'm going to go for Swansea 1, Everton 3. Okay, the late kick-off on Saturday this weekend in the Premier League gets around about at 5:30, and it's Stoke City at home to Manchester City. We'll talk about Stoke briefly to begin with. Good point of Spurs during the week. They did concede a late goal in that one, but they'll be happy going to White Hart Lane and getting a point. And in terms of the Premier League table, they're smack bang in the middle of it at the moment, so they'll be relatively content with that. Although they will want maybe a few memorable wins between now and the end of the season, sort of to really give their season a boost and hope it doesn't just sort of peter out to sort of 11th or 12th place finish. As for Manchester City, fantastic fighting spirit at home to Chelsea during the week. Really good 3 points. They were 1-0 down, and then Carlos Tevez came on for his first appearance for quite some time for Manchester City, and he helped them turn it round. 2-1 win, Samir Nasri getting the winner, and that made sure they stayed within a point of Manchester United. So arguably one of the biggest wins of the season for City, and they'll want to follow that up this weekend. And also Manchester United aren't playing until Monday, so if City do go to the Britannia Stadium and get 3 points, they go top of the league, and that's where they want to stay for the rest of the season. Prediction wise, I think it's going to be a really tough game for City. I think Stoke, they can afford to sort of put all their best team players in. They're out of the FA Cup, they're out of the Europa League, so there'll be no resting of players from Stoke. They'll really go for this one. Having said that, I think City will nick the points, so I'm going to go for Stoke 0, Manchester City 1. Okay, moving on to the only game on Sunday this weekend in the Premier League. It's a 4 o'clock kick-off between West Brom and Newcastle. We'll talk about West Brom to begin with. Most recently they drew at Wigan, which was a decent away point. Any away point in the Premier League is a good one. And they've also won their last 2 at home, so they'll be confident going to this one at the Hawthorns, so they can get the 3 points, even though it's against a team that's capable of Newcastle. And for West Brom and for Roy Hodgson, you think maybe they're on 36 points at the moment, I think, and they probably want one more victory sort of just to ensure survival and ensure they can relax going in sort of to the remaining few games or so. As for Newcastle, Spurs, Chelsea and Liverpool all dropped points during the week, so that was really positive for Alan Pardew's men, and they'll still be hunting a top 4 finish, but maybe realistically a top 5, and with that in mind they'll really want to get the 3 points this weekend at West Brom. They'll hope that the 1-0 victory over Norwich last time out is the start of a better run, because if there's a time to go on a positive run and win a few games in a row, it's now, sort of March, April time. It's a fantastic time sort of to really turn on the style. Prediction wise though, I actually think it's to be nothing to choose between these two. I think it's going to be a relatively frustrating game for both sides, with neither of the teams but being able to break the other one down. So I'm actually going to go for West Brom 0, Newcastle 0. Okay, the final game to look at is on Monday evening, Monday night football fixture between Manchester United and Fulham at Old Trafford. We'll talk about Manchester United to begin with, and I don't think they'll be particularly fazed by City's fight back against Chelsea during the week. Obviously we would rather Chelsea held on for the points, but it wasn't to be. Manchester United will relish this title challenge, and they knew that it wasn't over sort of after they got to top. They know that City is still going to keep fighting, and they could be second by the time this game comes around as well. So the pressure's on, but Sir Alex Ferguson has been in this position before, and they've won their last 5 games. So at home, in front of their home fans, they'll think they'd be confident in getting the points in this one against Fulham. As for Fulham, after a positive run, they've lost their last couple, so they'll be disappointed with that, and they want to get back on track. Home to Swansea last time out, they were perhaps reasonably heavy favourites to win that one, and maybe they don't relish sort of being expected to do stuff, because on their most recent run, most people weren't talking about Fulham. They're going about their business quietly, but people started talking about Yol being more positive and the future looking more positive, and then they've lost a couple in a row. So they'll want that not to be a trend, and they want to maybe go to Manchester United and get something sort of to really sort of surprise everyone. They're one of 3 teams with 36 points as well, so they can push away from that pack. They can have genuine ambitions, sort of finishing the top 10 this year, which would be a great achievement for a team like Fulham. Prediction-wise though, I think it's the Premier League champions that are going to win it, and they probably will be second by this point. Like I said, the pressure's on, but that won't faze United, so I think it's going to be Manchester United 3, Fulham 1.